All right, we're about to jump into one of the biggest, most fundamental questions humanity has ever asked. Seriously, it's a question that creates this huge divide in how we see the world, and it ends up shaping everything about how we see our place in the universe.
I mean, this is the ultimate starting point, isn't it? Before we had science, before we had philosophy, before anything really, there was this one nagging question. Where did all this come from? And believe me, the answer you land on sets the stage for everything else. So, let's start with one of the oldest and, frankly, most influential ideas out there. For a lot of the great thinkers in ancient Greece, God wasn't some magician just pulling a universe out of a hat. Nope, they saw God as something much more familiar. They saw him as a master craftsman. Now, the core idea here is absolutely crucial. They believed that both God and the raw stuff of the universe were eternal. They've just always existed. So God's job wasn't to, create matter out of thin air. His job was to take the messy, chaotic, pre-existing stuff and bring order and beauty to it.
And the Greeks actually had a specific name for this divine craftsman, the demiurgos. You gotta think of him less like a wizard and more like a master architect or an artist. He looks at all this chaotic stuff floating around and imposes a beautiful, rational design onto it. He forms, he doesn't conjure. It's a huge difference.
So here's how Plato's model basically works. First, you have the divine craftsman, the demiurgos. Now, he's not just making things up as he goes. He's looking at a perfect, eternal blueprint, what Plato called the forms. Then, he takes the raw, formless matter that has always been there coexisting with him, and he shapes it according to that blueprint. And the result? The ordered, beautiful cosmos we see around us. It's all about bringing intelligent design to pre-existing chaos.
Okay, let's switch gears to a completely different way of looking at things. What if the creator and the creation aren't separate things at all? What if they're just two sides of the very same coin? Well, that's the core idea behind a worldview called pantheism.
In this view, see, the universe isn't some sculpture that God made. It's more like an extension of God. You could almost see it as the physical body of the divine, or maybe a mirror image of it. That line we usually draw between the maker and the thing that's made, it just completely dissolves.
So the most important takeaway here is this deep, profound sense of unity. If everything is ultimately one, then the divine isn't some being out there somewhere, totally separate from us. It's in the trees, it's in the stars, and yeah, it's even inside of us. The physical world we see becomes this living reflection of a deeper, divine reality. Okay, now for the real game changer. A third idea came on the scene that was just radically different. Different from the Greek architect, different from the pantheistic oneness. This was the Judeo-Christian concept of creatio ex nihilo, which literally means creation out of nothing.
And right here, you can see the fundamental split. In the Greek view, you've got two co-eternal partners, right? God and matter. God is the great shaper. But in the Judeo-Christian view, only God is eternal, period. He doesn't just shape stuff that's already there, he brings the very existence of that stuff into being, from absolute total nothingness. It's not a long process of forming, it's a singular, powerful act of pure creation.
And this is where it gets a little subtle, but it's so important. Augustine put it perfectly. The universe comes from God, meaning he's the source. But it's not made of God, meaning it doesn't share his actual divine substance. And that is the key difference that separates this idea from pantheism.
If that last idea feels a little tricky, don't worry. The philosopher Thomas Aquinas came up with a brilliant analogy that makes it all click. Just think about it. Midday follows the morning, right? It comes from the morning in the sequence of time. But midday isn't literally made out of the morning's minutes and hours. In the exact same way, creation comes from God's will, but it isn't made out of his divine being.
So, okay, we've looked at three totally different origin stories. But why does any of this actually matter to us today? Well, here's why. Because your theory of where you came from will directly, 100% determine your theory of what you are here for. Let's see how that works.
The fallout from these ideas is just massive. Look at the Greek idea that matter is eternal. It's kind of like a precursor to modern materialism. If the physical stuff of the universe is all there is, well then, we're just physical beings. Our minds are just what our brains do. A thought is just a really complex chemical reaction. And in that story, there's no built-in cosmic purpose. Any meaning we have is something we have to invent for ourselves. But if we were created from nothing by a purposeful creator, wow, that changes everything. It means we have a dual nature, body and soul. It means we were made for something. We have an inherent purpose because we actually belong to our Creator. This famous line from Augustine just perfectly captures the heart of this theistic view of purpose. It suggests there's this longing that's kind of built right into us, like a God-shaped hole, you might say. And the idea is that our ultimate fulfillment, that sense of true peace and rest, can only really be found when we connect back to the very reason we were made. So, what is that purpose exactly? Well, from this perspective, it's kind of threefold. First, to honor the source of our own existence. Second, to actually enjoy and appreciate this incredible world we've been put in. And finally, to find our ultimate meaning and satisfaction, not in ourselves, but in a relationship with our Creator.
So in the end, it all comes back to this. Are we just beautifully arranged matter in a universe that has no inherent meaning? Or are we creatures, intentionally brought into being for a divine purpose? The story you believe about your beginning will absolutely shape the story you live out every single day. The only question left is, which story is yours?